Hello and welcome to chapter 15 of 2nd Samuel. Okay, let's get right into it. And it came to pass after this that Absalom prepared him chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early and stood beside the way of the gate. And it was so that when any man had a controversy come to the king for judgment, then Absalom called unto him and said, Of what city art thou? And he said, Thy servant is one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom said unto him, See that matters are good and right, but there is no man disputed of the king to hear thee. Absalom said, Moreover, O that I were made judge in the land, that every man which hath any suit or cause might come unto me, and I would do him justice. And it was so, that when any man came nigh to him to do him obeisance, he put forth his hand and took him and kissed him. And on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Oh dear, so Absalom, still a little bit bitter, is coming up with a plan here to try and take over David's throne. Oh yeah. Okay, so coming up with a plan to take the throne. So he's like, well, I'm charming, I'm good looking, which as we know was pointed out in the previous chapter, kind of randomly popped in there, but it was obviously important for this next chapter. So he knew he was all that. I'm not going to write that. He knew he was charming and handsome. And he thought, okay, that's enough for me to be able to get an advantage. So he did what we see many political leaders do, where they make promises of better days under his leadership. I mean, it's a common strategy. Very rarely comes to pass, but it is what is done, sadly. And what he did was he set up at the gates, just literally pulling people off the street and listening to them one by one, helping them share their grievances. And they were so sad that the king wasn't listening to them, so he was literally swiping them one by one. Absalom, you've gone from doing a really nice, well, not a nice thing, I wouldn't call what he did nice, but he was just, he had his good intentions, I suppose you could say. Now he's trying to take over his dad's throne. So Absalom was picking people off one by one to get them on side. And listening to them and sympathizing them, and because he did that, he stole the hearts of the men of Israel, so they were falling for his charms. Isn't that often what happens? I can think of quite a few political leaders that have possibly got into power in that way, that might not be the best or might not have the best intentions. We'll leave that there because we're not going to get into politics, but that is how the situation went down then, and there's nothing new under the sun. That's still happening today. And it came to pass after 40 years that Absalom said unto the king, I pray thee, let me go and pay my vow which I have vowed unto the Lord in Hebron. For thy servant vowed a vow while I abode at Geshur in Syria, saying, If the Lord shall bring me again indeed to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord. And the king said unto him, Go in peace. So he arose and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, As soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. Okay, so I just checked my commentary. My commentary says 4 years, and this one says 40. Could be one of those when they're translating the numbers and it could have been slightly off. I'm going to put 4. 4 sounds a bit more realistic, otherwise it'd be really old. I don't know, what does yours say? Does yours say 40 or does yours say 4? not too much of an issue, but it's good to note. So it could be 4 years of scheming. He finally felt confident about moving forward with his plan. So many years scheming, finally ready to go ahead with his plan. So he asked David for permission to go to Hebron. Here. So he asked to go there, and that's where David had been anointed king of Judah, which I got from my commentary. I did not remember that. David was anointed king of Judah here. Okay. And he wanted to fulfill a vow where he would, promise to serve the Lord. But this is where the plot thickens, because he arranged for his spies to go throughout Israel, announcing that he is the king. Like, what? Absalom reigneth. So got his spies to announce he was king. I mean, what are you up to, bro? And with Absalom went 200 men out of Jerusalem that were called, and they went into their simplicity, and they knew not anything. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's counselor from his city, even from Gilo or Gilo, where he offered sacrifices. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. And, it made even worse because there were 200 men who innocently went over with Absalom, not knowing about his devious plan. But, they joined him at that point, and as did Ahithophel, who was David's advisor. I mean, he got the whole team, and his team was growing. Oh dear. And there came a messenger to David, saying, the hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom. So he's gotten wind of this. And David said unto all his servants that were with him at Jerusalem, arise and let us flee, for we shall not escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly and bring evil upon us, and smite the city with the edge of the sword. And the king's servants said unto the king, behold, thy servants are ready to do whatever my lord the king shall appoint. And the king went forth and all his household after him. And the king left 10 women, which were concubines, to keep the house. So the word got out. The word of the rebellion got out. And this was a big deal. This is not a little thing. This was huge. And he ordered his entire household to be evacuated because he didn't want any bloodshed. And evacuated everyone. But he did leave 10 concubines, 10 women, to take care of the house. Left 10 women at the palace. Now, we haven't forgotten that part of God's judgment was going to be that he was going to take David's many women from him as a consequence to his sin. So that's just a good forewarning to know what's going down there. Oh, okay, I'm still here. And the king went forth, and all the people after him, and tarried in a place that was far off. And all his servants passed on beside him, and all the Cherethites, and all the Pelethites, and all the Gittites, 600 men, which came after him from Gath, passed on before the king. Then said the king to Ittai the Gittite, Wherefore goest thou also with us? Return to thy place, and abide with the king, for thou art a stranger, as also an exile. Whereas thou camest but yesterday, should I this day make thee go up and down with us? Seeing I go whither I may, return thou and take back thy brethren. Mercy and truth be with thee. And Ittai answered the king and said, As the Lord liveth, and as my lord the king liveth, surely in what place my lord the king shall be, whether in death or life, even there also will thy servant be. Dedication. And David said to Ittai, Go and pass over. And Ittai the Gittite passed over, and all his men, and all the little ones that were with him. And all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king also himself passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. So, bless David. I like it when we see this side of David. So, even during all the agony of what's going on, is trying to be overthrown by his own son, he was still concerned for one of his faithful soldiers, Ittai, who was a foreigner in the land and exile. And he urged him to come back, but Ittai swore of his loyalty to David, even if it meant death. So David, still worrying about others. Right, so yeah, he was worried about his soldier. He urged him to stay, but he said, No, I'm with you to the end. Beautiful. And the sight of fleeing and David, their own king, going into exile just caused everyone to just wail their eyes out. So the sight of the king, etc., fleeing caused all to cry and weep. And well, that your king is your strength in the land, isn't he? So if he's going down, that's also going to create a lot of fear. All right, let's keep going. And lo, Zadok also and all the Levites were with him, bearing the ark of the covenant of God. And they set down the ark of God, and Abiathar went up until all the people had done passing out of the city. And the king said unto Zadok, Carry back the ark of God into the city. If I shall find favour in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me again, and show me both it and his habitation. But if he thus say, I have no delight in thee, behold, here I am, let him do to me as seemeth good unto him. The king said also unto Zadok the priest, Art thou not a seer? Return into the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz thy son, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar. See, I will tarry in the plain of the wilderness until there come word from you to certify me. Zadok therefore and Abiathar carried the ark of God again to Jerusalem, and they tarried there. So we've got the priest here. Remember, the Levites were the priestly tribe, so they were carrying the ark of God, and they wanted to make sacrifices. So wanted to move the ark. David insisted it stayed in the city. And what he said was really beautiful, and that's kind of how we should all kind of live our lives. If I shall find favour in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me again and show me both it and his habitation. That thing, I'm going to highlight that. I haven't highlighted it in a while, but that one stood out to me. It's what we always say, like, if it's God's will, then this will happen. If it's God's will, then I will see this. If it's God's will, then whatever. So it's a good thing to highlight, to remind us that we are not in control. Our Lord is in control. And his house, David wanted his house to remain in the city, in the Holy Land. So, if it was God's will, David would return to the ark. And, that's a big deal because the ark's really important. It's God's house, and while they wanted to carry it with them and keep it safe, God is God. Like, He's got it. Don't worry. It will stay safe. It's fine. So he was leaving his fate in God's hands. Leaving his fate, as we all should, in God's hands. And rather than having the priests flee along with David, he asked that they remain behind and be his informants. So asked priests to remain and be informants. Okay. And David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet, and wept as he went up, and had his head covered, and he went barefoot, and all the people that was with him covered every man his head, and they went up weeping as they went up. And one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. Oh, brilliant. So he heard his own advisor was a traitor, and he said, oh, I hope that he guides them wrong. Sorry, my camera died and it ruined my flow. Where was I? Okay, so David's own advisor had been a traitor, and he prayed for some kind of intervention, and he wanted him to ruin his guidance, so to speak. Right, let's take it to the end. And it came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mount where he worshipped God, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. Unto whom David said, If thou passest on with me, then thou shalt be a burden unto me. But if thou return to the city, and say unto Absalom, thy father's servant hitherto, so will I now also be thy servant, then mayest thou for me defeat the counsel of Ahithophel. And hast thou not therewith thee Zadok and Abiathar the priests? Therefore it shall be that what things soever thou shalt hear out of the king's house, thou shalt tell it to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Behold, they have there with them their two sons, Ahimaaz Zadok's son, and Jonathan Abiathar's son. I struggle every single time I read that word. And by them ye shall send unto me everything that ye can hear. So Hushai, David's friend, came into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem. So when David reached the top of the mountain where he was praying, he found Hushai, who was grieving for his king. And Hushai is another personal advisor of David. Hushai, another of David's advisors. And he was emosh. He was crying. And then David realised, ooh, Hushai, you're going to be the perfect person to send back to Jerusalem, pretending to be an advisor for Absalom. So he was going to use him to, be an informer, really. So, idea to use Hushai as an informer. And he could then guide Ahithophel, his other informer who was a traitor, he could guide him slightly wrong and offer and get some intelligence to give to the priests. So David now had his eyes and ears on the ground, and he knew what Absalom's plans were going to be. So it was all working out because God was answering his prayer. God was with David here. I've got no space to write what I want to write. So David now had eyes and ears on the ground. There you go. Exciting stuff. So Absalom killed his brother because, well, he did a bad thing. He fled. David missed him and wanted him back, and Absalom decided he wanted to be king. That was random, but he wanted to overthrow the throne. Now he's going behind his back, getting all David's people, and David is having to one-up him. So we've got informers working for informers. It's all very complicated, but God's hand is in this, so everything is going to plan. Well, God will make it work out according to his plan, I'm sure. So tomorrow, chapter 16. How are we getting on here? Okay, so they're all kind of similar length, the next few chapters. So yeah, look forward to reading your comments and takeaways, and I will speak to you tomorrow.